All right, howdy. Howdy. So it's first of all, I just want to say thank you very much for the opportunity. I know Dean is not here today, and I get the emails for the Houston A&M Club, and I see the great lineup of speakers. You guys have CEOs and all kinds of executive directors from major corporations. So I don't know how Dean felt that I was worthy of being up here today. It's probably why he's not here, but hopefully. You all can resonate with the story that I'm about to share. So thank you very much again for the opportunity to be here today. I don't know many of you here in the room today, but I think one of the things that's really powerful is that at one point in our lives, we all walked the same grounds, we all visited the same buildings, perhaps we even sat in the same chairs in some of those classrooms, right? And I think that's really, really powerful. So again, really glad to be here and glad to be able to speak to a group of ags that have come before me. I don't have a slide deck that I'm going to be presenting here today, but I do have one picture, and it's the picture of myself that you see up there when I was 17 years old. Now, the reason I have that picture up there today is because I would like for you to imagine, while I'm giving my talk and sharing my success story with you, what it was like for that 17-year-old high school kid that you see up there with, the baggy clothes, the shaved head, the goatee, to really kind of imagine and picture what it was like for that 17-year-old student to go through this transformational change as I went through the Genesys Works program and to eventually be the person that is standing up here speaking to you today. So, about 6 months ago, Rafael Alvarez, who is class of 90, he's the founder and CEO of Genesys Works, he gave me a call and he said, Hector, I just finished giving a speech at the Houston A&M Club, and I talked about Genesys Works. And of course, because you're one of our greatest success stories in the program, I mentioned you in my presentation. And you have a great story. You obviously know that. You have a great story to tell. But I think it would be more powerful if you actually went down to the traditions lunch yourself and actually shared that story. I think that the words coming out of your mouth and people being able to see who you are today would have much more of an impact. And had I not known what I know today, I would have likely thought, come on, Rafael, this is the same story that I've been telling for the last 7 years. And people are bound to get tired of hearing me tell it. I don't know how often or how much longer I can keep this up before people start just throwing tomatoes at me, right, for getting tired of seeing my face. But the truth is that if unchecked, we can all often fall victim to what economist Robin Hogarth referred to as the curse of knowledge, a cognitive bias in which we often find it difficult to think of problems or perhaps even solutions when we take the point of view of those that perhaps don't share in our knowledge. In other words, because we have a certain knowledge, experience, or expertise about a particular topic, our automatic assumption is that everyone else shares in that knowledge. And what often happens is that we rob them of the experience. Well, believe it or not, I believe that Genesys Works is by and large one of the greatest nonprofit organizations in the city of Houston who is changing the track of life for so many students, but in the process is also having an even greater impact on families and communities. I am an actual example of what this great program produces. Yet when I talk to people about Genesys Works, many have never even heard of the program. Genesys Works is truly Houston's best kept secret. So today, what I would like to do is I would like to take you through my success story through Genesys Works, what my life prospects were like before Genesys Works, what I accomplished while I was in the program, where the program took me, and where I am today. So allow me to start off by telling you a little bit more about my earlier life so that you can kind of gain some perspective of what that life was like and what my family situation was growing up. So I'm the oldest of three. I come from a household with very limited education and financial resources. My father, a Mexican immigrant, had no more than a third grade education. And aside from his experience as a mechanic and an infantry soldier, in the Mexican army, he had no useful skills that he could actually apply in corporate America, in the corporate workforce. My mother, unfortunately, wasn't much better off. The youngest of 6, she actually just achieved a 9th grade education when she was forced to drop out of high school in the 10th grade to supplement the income of an alcoholic father who just could not keep a steady job. Growing up, I witnessed and felt firsthand many of the stresses of having to do without. In fact, in the early 90s, median household income for a family of 4, 2 adults, 2 children, was about $41,000 per year. My parents were bringing home just $28,000 a year combined. We were getting by with 32% less than the national average. Oh, and I forgot to mention, we actually had 1 extra mouth to feed. So the only thing my financially struggling parents could do was actually just provide for the most basic of their children's needs and mold them into productive members of society. And the truth is, they did. They did a really good job at that, I might add. Like any young boy growing up, I idolized my parents. I knew that they were very honest and hardworking people who would do whatever they could to make sure that I succeeded. But I still had a very big problem. I knew that I was poor, and I hated it. From a very early age, I vowed that I would do whatever it took to free myself from this poverty that I had come to experience as a child. Of course, anything within the bounds of the law. The problem was that I had no idea where to start. I was always told that an education for someone like me, someone coming out of my neighborhood, was the key to success. Yet no one in my family had ever graduated high school. No one had gone on to college. And what's worse, I had no role models that I could actually relate to who could validate this idea for me. So was an education really something that was the key to success for someone like me? Well, fast forward about 7 years, and I have to tell you folks, my options in life were very simple. I could do like a lot of my friends and even some extended family members were doing and join a gang, maybe sell drugs, or I could join the military. That's it. Although not synonymous, those were my only 2 realities. Become a thug or become a soldier. Now, let me be clear. I don't want you to believe for a second that I was a troublemaker or that I was a bad kid, because the truth is that I wasn't. But let me tell you what I was. I was a high school student who was lost, who had no clear direction in life, who truly feared an uncertain future. And unless I was able to pack my bags and head off to the military as soon as possible, I feared for what would actually become of my life. But all of that started to change in the spring of 2002 when this guy walked into my classroom and started telling me that I could accomplish so much more in life if I simply joined his program. He started showing me all these charts and graphs to prove his point about how much money I could earn if I simply graduated from high school and how much more money I could earn if I went on to college that, to be honest, at the moment, I could care less about. Just tell me how to make more money, I thought. That's why I came to your meeting. Now, I'll admit, I was very skeptical of this guy. But I knew that there had to be some truth to what he was saying. After all, anyone who was willing to take a chance on a 17-year-old high school kid, that high school kid that you see up there with the shaved head, the goatee, and the baggy clothes, and turn him into some kind of professional, had to know something I didn't. Well, as you might have imagined, that guy was Rafael Alvarez, and the program he was asking me to join was Genesys Works, which really at the time didn't even exist. The program was just an idea. But Rafael, being who he is, of course, he started the program that summer. And that summer of 2002, myself, along with 9 other students, joined his very first class in the grounds of Southwest Charter High School, where we would undergo some sort of an information technology services training boot camp. Of course, with the promise that at the end of this training, we would all achieve or earn an internship working with this great corporation downtown. Now, by the end of that summer, something interesting had happened. There were 3 of us left, and there were no internships. We had 0 jobs. Apparently, getting Houston's corporations to sign on to this idea that you can somehow turn at-risk high school students and mold them into some kind of professional was a lot harder than Rafael thought. Well, I had no choice. I had to go back to doing what I was doing before, which was creating the absolute best sandwiches I could as a sandwich artist at my local Subway. Now, I will say that I was extremely disheartened. I mean, I had given up my entire summer here, right? As a 17-year-old, there's many more things that we could have been doing, that I could have been doing for my summer. I had gone through the program, I had gained a new skill, and I was hoping to actually achieve or attain the skill that would be my key, so to speak, out of that poverty that I had come to know and experience as a child and as an adolescent, and into the prosperity that I knew was out there. Well, I had a skill, that was a certainty, but I did not have that internship. I did not have the job that I was hoping on, that I would hope be secured. I felt betrayed. I felt that Rafael, I felt that Rafael had let us down. About 2 months later, Rafael gave me a call, and he said he had some great news. He had some news he wanted to share with me. So I picked up the phone. Rafael gave me a call, and the first words out of his mouth were, "Hector, we secured this great internship with Reliant Resources, a great company downtown. Are you ready to go to work?" And for a second there, I didn't believe what I was hearing. I felt a sense of exhilaration. I felt a sense of enthusiasm, and that things were truly about to change. But then all of a sudden, I started thinking to myself, wait, hold on for a second. If I take Rafael on his word again, if I take this opportunity to work for Reliant Resources and get this internship, am I going to be setting myself up for failure one more time? Is Rafael leading me down the wrong path? It took me about 5 seconds to really figure out what I wanted to do. And of course, in all of my adolescent wisdom, I had made a decision. I'm sorry, Rafael. I'm sticking with my original plan to join the military and to stick with Subway. To Rafael's astonishment, I had declined the very opportunity that I had worked so hard for the previous summer. The key to what very well could have opened so many more doors for me in my life. Well, almost in a metaphoric way of the universe letting me know that I had made a bad decision. About a week later, and it was precisely about a week later, I was working the night shift at the Subway like I would normally do, nothing out of the ordinary that night, when a guy walked in and robbed me at gunpoint. Now, having someone hold a gun to your face and tell you that if you don't give them more money, more than the $120 that you had in your cash register, they were going to blow your head off. It's a very traumatic experience, let me tell you. An incentive enough for me to not ever want to work a job like that again. So that night, I went home, thought about what had happened. Obviously, I made it. I'm still here. I called Rafael, and I said, Rafael, I think I'm ready for that job now. So you see, this time Rafael turned me down because it turned out that the other student who was given the opportunity to get the internship, he took it up on the first opportunity. He was a lot smarter than I was, and he took that opportunity. Of course, I was down, but about 3 months later, Reliant Resources saw that the value that was being produced out of this one student, and they opened up a second opportunity. And this time, when Rafael came to me for the opportunity, I grasped onto it and held onto it for dear life. Now, never in my wildest dreams did I actually believe that I would be working in a Houston skyscraper as a professional. The only reason that I knew people would go downtown was to either bail someone out of jail or to pay a fine. But when I stepped foot inside a Houston downtown skyscraper, it changed everything. Can you imagine what it feels like to be a 17-year-old high school kid? Again, that high school kid that you see up there. And to work in an environment where he is seen not as a kid, but as a professional, as a valuable member of a team. It was an amazing feeling. And you know what? I wanted more. When I saw that the people I was working with weren't necessarily better than me or brighter than me, that's when I thought, you know what? I think I can succeed at this. I think I can actually do this. No, wait. I can succeed at this. I can become a professional. Changed everything. Over the next 2 years, I went on to provide professional services, information technology services, building a professional resume, and worked with Reliant Resources in downtown Houston, who today is NRG. And I also provided those same services to a company called United Space Alliance, a subcontracting company for NASA. And again, this was at the age of 17 years old. And I had the opportunity to work in mission control. And that in itself was an extremely incredible opportunity for me at the time. And it also gave me some credibility back home as well with my friends in my own neighborhood. Now, with that new mindset about what I could actually accomplish in life, I enrolled in Texas A&M University in the fall of 2004. But boy, was I unprepared for the academic rigor that I was about to undergo. In fact, my first semester at A&M, I earned a 1.7 GPA. Definitely not my best days, for sure.
Well, he was high.
So I remember calling one of my former managers at United Space Alliance to tell him that was it. I was done. I was giving up. I just couldn't do it. It was way too hard. Now, one of my former managers, this manager that I'm telling you about, just coincidentally happened to be a former Aggie professor himself. And after speaking with him for some time to actually justify my decision for dropping out, he encouraged me to stay in, to fight hard, to not give up, and to learn how to study. He truly became my mentor when I needed him the most. And yet I still doubted myself. I thought about how hard it was going to be to simply raise my grades. And could I even endure another 4, maybe even 5 years of this type of academic rigor? But you know, when I thought about all the people back home who were counting on me, who had invested in me, who were basically betting on me to prove that someone from my neighborhood could actually go to college, go to Texas A&M, a 4-year institution, and graduate successfully, I knew that I had no say in the matter. I knew that I had to graduate. I knew that I had to succeed. And so what did I do? I put my head down and I went to work. With the support of my Genesys Works mentors and of course with Aggie Student Services, in May of 2009, I finally graduated with a degree in technology, business management, and was able to graduate with a 3.0 GPA. Not the best, of course, but a significant improvement from where I started. Today, I'm a lead software program manager at Hewlett-Packard, working on HP's revolutionary Moonshot class of servers. And while I have achieved a great deal of success in my own personal life, what I truly hold to be my most profound accomplishment is the rippling effect that my success has had throughout my family. You see, I have two younger siblings, a younger brother and a younger sister, whose ultimate goal in life, 12 years ago, was to graduate from high school at best. At best. Today, my sister is an alumni from the University of Houston. And as for my younger brother, well, he is the biggest Aggie football fan that I know, aside from myself, of course. And he is actually in College Station today working on a petroleum engineering degree. Like me, both my brother and sister went through the same Genesys Works program, but for them, a college education was no longer a probability anymore. It was a requirement. You know, I was the first in my family to graduate from high school. I was the first to obtain a corporate profession. I was the first to attain a college degree. And I am proud to be that leader in my family who has broken the cycle of poverty and who has changed our family's course in history forever. So like I've said, I've had a great deal of success in my life. And of course, none of this would have been possible without the Genesys Works opportunity. I never forget about how critical that opportunity was. And my success has come with a lot of hard work, a lot of determination, and a lot of just my ability to persist without exception whenever a new challenge arose. And trust me, there's been tons of challenges along the way. But again, I've made it a point to never forget about just how critical the Genesys Works opportunity was for me and in my life, and how critical it can be in changing the life of an inner city high school student. That's why today, I also serve on the board of directors of Genesys Works, and I could not be more proud to play a strategic role in the Genesys Works mission, which is to enable inner city high school students to break through the barriers and to discover through meaningful work experience that they too can succeed as corporate professionals. I know firsthand the type of change that this mission and this organization is bringing about. Again, not just on individuals, but on families and communities. And that is why I have made it my personal mission to ensure that every single high school student in the city of Houston, if they're ready for this opportunity and if they want it, my mission is to ensure that they can have it. Now, while the Genesys Works program, again, has had a significant impact on my life, my accomplishments don't stop there. As I mentioned earlier, I graduated from A&M in the spring of 2009. Now, I'm willing to bet that many people in this room can remember what happened around that time. The United States had just undergone one of the biggest financial crises since the Great Depression. And I graduated into an economy that had nothing but downsizing and hiring freezes all across corporate America. In fact, I spent 9 stressful months after graduation looking for a job before I would finally be hired on full-time. Now, those 9 months were, without a doubt, one of the darkest periods of my life. I had incurred student loan debt and even some personal debt while I was a student, and it was all coming due very soon. And I had absolutely no way to pay for it. Now, I say this was the darkest period of my life, but after doing some reflection and knowing what I know today, I have come to understand that these 9 months were actually a blessing in disguise. Let me explain. You see, this was yet another hardship. This was yet another road bump that I had to cross. This was yet another challenge that had been thrown my way, and I was forced to do what I had been doing before, which was the conditioning that I received from Genesys Works, which was whenever you have a problem, find a solution to it. So what did I do? I started teaching myself personal finance, learning about how money really worked, how the economy worked, the role of government, and the role that it plays in our economy today. Now, what I understood, what I learned about this economy shook me to my core. Because what I discovered about the structural problems that we have in today's economy and the impact that I believe it's going to have on the American middle class when it all unravels was not what was being shared in the mainstream media. So I took it upon myself to make sure that every bit of information that I had learned about economics, about business, about money, was all shared with everyone who was willing and ready to hear my message. In the fall of 2012, just ahead of the presidential election, I officially became an author when I self-published a book in Amazon's Kindle store titled Declassified: The Fall of the Middle Class and Rise of the Internet Entrepreneur. In my book, I tackled 5 major factors contributing to the falling standard of living and downsizing of America's middle class. The first, a federal student loan debt bubble with over $1.2 trillion in loans outstanding today and an increasing default rate. The growing trend of corporate America's reliance on a contingent workforce which is historically and traditionally underpaid. A government interventionist policy in the economy producing asset bubbles, producing malinvestment and misallocation of resources. The Federal Reserve's inflationary monetary policy producing asset bubbles and paper wealth, stealing from savers and hindering producers. And lastly, and probably the biggest of them all, America's national debt and all of its unfunded liabilities. Now, I believe that all of these factors will continue to contribute to America's decline in the fall of what I see as the middle class, and are especially dangerous for the middle class. But not is all bad news. I do have some good news. I'm not a pessimist. I'm not a Chicken Little running around screaming that the sky is falling. What I believe is the solution is the new class that is rising in America today, and really all over the world, which is internet entrepreneurs. I believe that what our country needs today, and will largely need in the future, is more self-made internet entrepreneurs who can innovate, create, and produce the products and services that the world economy, this interconnected world economy that we live in today, will demand. I believe it's the only way that our nation can get back on track and for individuals to restore and reclaim their financial freedom. But it is individuals who will have to take charge and lead the way. Like Marcus Lemonis, a Lebanese-born American businessman and investor, says, the American dream isn't going to save itself. My book has since risen to the bestseller list on Amazon's Kindle store, and I do believe that the middle class is in decline today. But again, something phenomenal is happening, which is the rise of this new class that I often talk about, the internet entrepreneur. Today, I'm also the host of the New Class Rising podcast, which is downloaded in over 27 different countries around the world, where my focus is on business and economics discussions with some of today's most inspiring entrepreneurs, and to help the middle class join today's rising new class. Lastly, because I have also come to understand money and its role in our economy, today I run a small internet-based gold and silver bullion business where I help the middle class preserve their purchasing power, which is largely being undermined today by the Federal Reserve's inflationary monetary policy. So as you can see, Genesys Works took a kid, again, that kid that you see up there, who was in great fear for his future, who had no idea what he was going to do with his life. Genesys Works gave him the confidence, the skills to succeed, and through his own experiences and life journey has come to understand his life's mission and his purpose. This is the type of change that organizations like Genesys Works can have. Again, not just on individuals, but on families, communities, and to a larger extension, the world. I share all of this with you, not to impress you, but to impress upon you the type of change that this organization is having, and truly how valuable mentorships are from people like yourselves, people like us, on kids like that. So I hope that my story has been a source of inspiration for some of you, if not all of you. And the reality is that I'm hoping that each of you feel, I would like to encourage each of you to take up a mentorship or to support an organization like Genesys Works. It doesn't have to be Genesys Works, but an organization like such. Because I believe that both the value that we get out of such organizations, both economical and societal, is truly a phenomenal thing. Thank you very much. So I was at West Side High School, and in my sophomore year, I moved to Southwest High School. That's where I met Raphael, and the whole story about Raphael coming into my classroom and telling us more about this great idea that he had.
But you were a bright young man.
I was.
Before you got there.
That's right. I was. Yeah. I went to West Side High. I was in West Side High School. I was in AP classes and had great grades. So I was never a bad student. I was never a bad kid. But the reason I moved to Southwest High School was because my family at the time was undergoing some financial hardship, and the schedule at Southwest High School was such that I could actually get out of school early and go find a job to where I could help out my family financially. I didn't want to drop out of high school because I knew that it was important. And my original plan, again, was to join the military, and I knew that I needed that high school diploma, otherwise I wouldn't be able to get into the military. Any other questions? Yep.
So how did A&M affect you now and in your preparation to get to where you're going today?
Well, it's interesting because it's funny, you always hear that, or often you hear that the education that you receive in school is a lot of times doesn't translate into what you're doing as a profession in the future, right? And that's exactly what happened to me. Today I use a very small percentage of that education that I received at A&M because a lot of the classes that I had were technology class, at least in my later years, were technology classes. But I believe that the greatest advantage, or the greatest piece of education that I received from A&M was the relationships, the habits that I developed while I was at A&M, which was to be an avid reader, to be open to new ideas, and to really pursue something that I was passionate about. Of course, the education itself was a great deal. It was a great thing. I'm not definitely trying to demote that, but the greatest habits that I achieved at A&M were reading, were always wanting to grow and wanting to do something better. And so today I am using my program management and technology experience that I received at Texas A&M. But of course, those classes always come later as you're pursuing your major coursework, right?
Did A&M help you with any type of scholarship?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I received I believe it was called a Century Scholar Scholarship. That was a $20,000 scholarship over 4 years. So every semester, that was divided over 4 years, and every semester, I believe it was $2,500. So yeah, absolutely. Texas A&M was great in providing me, scholarships. Of course, the interesting thing about that is, my family didn't make a lot of money, like I mentioned. But when I worked at Genesys Works, the income, I was earning more money than both of my parents combined. And the income that I earned as a student of Genesys Works actually set me over the qualification for a lot of scholarships and a lot of other type of aid. So a majority of the aid that I received, aside from the $20,000 scholarship, which was a first generation student, criteria for me to get that. Aside from that, a majority of the scholarships or the financial aid that I received was student loans and federally funded student loans.
Good.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Last one. Curious
Sure.
about this guy with his IPO, this Jack Ma from China.
Sure.
Where is he headed?
Well, you have...
And is he somebody you look up to?
I don't know much about him. I don't know much about Alibaba. That's the company you're referring to. No, I don't. I don't think he's someone I look up to. But you have guys like Warren Buffett, obviously billionaire, one of the world's richest people, and you have guys like I believe his name is Mark Soros, another billionaire, who say that the 19th century belonged to the British, the 20th century was for the United States, and the 21st century is for China. So I do believe that today we're seeing a transfer of wealth from the West to the East. And unfortunately, like I mentioned in my talk here, A lot of that is as a result of the inflationary monetary policy that we have today. A lot of the paper wealth that's being produced. Today you see the stock market going up. You see some asset prices like real estate going up. But all of that, I believe, is a pure function of the actual money creation that's happening that's being produced by the Federal Reserve today. So there's no real wealth that's being produced. It's all paper assets. And so you have a lot of that wealth is going to be transferred from people holding paper assets to people holding more tangible assets, right? Like stakeholders in businesses, precious metals, real estate, and other commodities as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
William?
Yes, sir.
Your book's still available on Amazon?
Yes, sir, it is. It's still available. And it's only $2.99.
Is it really?
Yeah, it really is. It really is. I wanted to make sure that every single person who wanted to hear this message actually had the opportunity to do so, not just because I believe it's important for our country. Today I see a huge movement into a reliance on government and a reliance on just external factors other than yourself, right? And I believe that in order for our economy, for our country to get back on track, people have to start relying on themselves. People have to see what's coming in the future, I believe, because once you identify trends, once you know what's coming in the future, you can start preparing today. And so it's one of the reasons why I've made my book so cheaply.
Good.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yes, sir.
You said when you started the program, there were only 2 internships. How many internships are there today?
Well, yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. So whenever I started the program, we had just Reliant Resources, and we had United Space Alliance. They were major corporate sponsors of the organization. Today, I don't have an exact figure, and this is something I should know, but we have well over 40 partners here in Houston alone that provide internships to over 250 students every single year. And of course, the program started here in Houston, but today we have offices in Chicago, Minneapolis, and San Diego as well. And I think we're headed up to DC next. So the program has just grown tremendously from 12 years ago when I was a student, one of the very first 10 students that actually went through the program. And it's been a phenomenal thing to see as one of the first students that went through it.
Okay. Hector, thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other announcements or anything?
Thank you, sir. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Anything else anybody has to bring forward?
No, you told my
Sure.
have a terrible time.
Sure, not a problem.
And I understand you graduated about 2009. And you're now 12.